YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back on Total War Rome 2 multiplayer, and I've got another battle replay for you. This time it is going to be myself as Carthage versus Rome. And I brought a very unconventional Carthage build, and some of you have begged me to use the Sacred Band. They are not easy to use, as they're not a very cost-effective unit, but they can be useful for a couple of things, I suppose, though I don't think you're going to see them in very competitive gameplay very often just because of their high cost and difficult to get a return on them. So what do I mean by an unorthodox Carthage build? My main line is consistent of hoplites once again, which is a huge risk against Rome because Rome's infantry will just lambast these hoplites. And look how much heavier these Sacred Band are. They're already falling behind in a jogging match with the late Libyans, who are a much lighter unit. So these guys have 95 armor, 42 attack, which is commendable for a hoplite, 36 damage, which isn't bad, 20 bonus versus large, a 22 charge bonus, which isn't bad, 59 melee defense, which, meh, I think it should be higher for the price you're paying here, and then 55 health, which, again, I kind of think that, you know, these guys have really heavy armor, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take away from the RDAI. The RDAI have the highest armor hoplites, I think. It's possible shield bearers might be the same, but RDAI have cheap, high armor hoplites. I kind of think that the WCA could do to help the other elite hoplites in the game is go ahead and boost their melee defense a little, and maybe a little armor boost. I don't know. Maybe I'd be wrong, and maybe it'd make them out of whack. I don't know. But it just seems like a hoplite unit ought to have pretty high defense. But you know what? Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, you can put them in hoplite phalanx, and it boosts their defense through the ceiling. So yeah, probably no need for that. But you would expect these guys' armor to be at least on par with what the Illyrians are bringing. But again, maybe they're just trying to give the well, I'm sitting here having a discussion in the middle of the battle, I apologize. But yeah, maybe they should, maybe they don't need to change anything. I don't know, whatever. Just throwing food for thought out there. So I have 5 hoplites with the Sacred Band in the center to support morale. They're backed up by 4 Libyan peltasts, which are the high armor peltasts with good shield strength. And then my cavalry is consistent of 1 mercenary Campanian cav on each flank, and then 1 unit of Carthaginian cav on each flank. I have 3 Libyan infantry on my right flank, and I have an elephant on my left flank. So what I'm trying to do is present a flanking threat on both flanks for my opponent. And over here my flanking threat is the elephants, and over here my flanking threat is the Libyan infantry. Libyan infantry would not be easy for enemy cavalry to break, and they can also support a cav fight. What I really hope to do in this battle, my opponent stays static. Let's take a look at his army. He's got 6 armored legionnaires, which are very powerful units. Though, if I were him, I probably would have brought Evocati cohort. They have almost as much armor and much higher attack, and they're cheaper. But he's brought armored legionnaires here. He's got several Syrian archers, 4 units of Syrian archers. So he definitely has the tools to kill my elephants and quite a lot of my infantry, if I can't get to them with my cavalry. He's got 2 legionary cav supported by gladiator spearmen, and on the other flank he's got 2 more legionary cav supported by another gladiator spearman. So from a cav power standpoint, my men have the advantage, but he's got these gladiator spearmen, which are an excellent support unit, and he has an infantry advantage. And he's also got a skirmishing advantage because of his range. However, he spent more money on his skirmishers by a little bit than I have. Now, Libyan peltast, why did I bring them here? Why did I not bring Cretan archers? Well, number 1, the Cretans cost more, and it would have thrown my army balance off. Number 2, Libyan peltasts can move through a lot of skirmish fire and remain fairly unscathed. They're going to have to take several volleys of elite slinger or archer fire to be killed, because they have excellent armor. And if you look at them, 55 armor for a peltast unit is great. And their shield strength is pretty good too, which means that they can block a lot of incoming missiles and get themselves in range. So I can use them for a couple of things. If I get them close, let's say that for instance I could get my Libyan peltast position here. I can attack his archers with the peltast, which would be great, or I can attack his armored legionnaires with the peltast. Armored legionnaires are going to be pretty resistant to the peltast from the front. See, my opponent's got his archers. His archers aren't going to do much to my hoplites, and they're not going to do much to my peltast. He's going to have to get into heavy shot if he wants to hurt my hoplites. And to be quite honest, 4 units of Syrian archers in heavy shot, quickly focused on a Sacred Band, would be a pretty brutal blow. And look at that, he is going to focus on my Sacred Band. But he doesn't go into heavy shot, and so you can see that he gets 1 kill out of all of those volleys. And I'm able to close the distance, basically. So on the flanks, I'm going to try and... I don't necessarily do the best job of it. What I'm trying to do is play games with my opponent. I want to make it look like I'm going to engage all my cav. Like, so I kind of pulled up and made it look like, yeah, look, I'm going to engage your cav right there with your spearmen. But the idea was that I was just going to hammer in with this Campanian cav to keep all 3 of these guys busy, and then I was going to scoot straight past his flank and into his archers with my Carthaginian cav. And then I could do the same thing over here again. But see, my opponent over here is faced with 3 Libyan infantry, so if he pulls out over here to get away from my Libyan infantry, then my Libyan infantry can come and collapse on the rear of his units while my hoplites hit him from the front. And my cavalry can keep his cav pinned down. But again, I'm trying to basically screen and get some kind of quick flanking maneuver, because my infantry is going to die hard to his infantry if I stay in prolonged melee combat. So again, I'm using my javelins, I'm killing a bunch of his Syrian archers. These guys are a threat to my elephants, and so that's why I'm targeting them at the moment. I am less concerned with his armored legionnaires, because my elephants and my Libyans with outflanking should be able to help handle the armored legionnaires. I'm mainly concerned about getting rid of these archers so that they don't ruin my elephant charge, because my elephants are capable of destroying his armored legionnaires, assuming that they're fixed against infantry, not just in an outright charge, I don't think. But yeah, look, he goes ahead and starts taking shots at my elephants. That was unexpected, because my opponent was focused on my infantry earlier, and I had strayed too close with my elephants, so I got to pull back, but he did some hit point damage to my elephants. That's where my general's at as well. So over here, again, my opponent falls for it. Boom, right there. Legionary cav into his 2 cav units, and then watch that. So immediately my Carthaginian cav's going to make a break for his back lines. So someone made a comment, I think it was Kitty SN. She used to play a lot of Rome Total War. She made a comment on my channel not too long ago about how people having these pointless cav engagements on the flank. I got to thinking about it. I was like, she's right. And I'm a little slow with my Carthaginian cav, but I am going to do it. So look, my opponent gets caught up in this pointless cav engagement out here, and now all of the Syrian archers, which are his only hope of destroying my elephants, are about to get just lambasted by a Carthaginian cav. I get my opponent cleanly fixed in the front, so my hoplites fix him in place. Over here, my Libyans ruin his cavalry, and then look, Carthaginian cav destroying his archers, and then easy mop-up right here for my elephants. So even with wildly inferior infantry, having a tool like elephants to do this is going to ruin your opponent. I mean, look at those flank charges into his legionnaires. It's just going to be brutal, and I'm just going to keep my elephants on a beeline, straight down his line. Not going to quit moving. All of his armored legionnaires immediately waver, and I mean, you can see my infantry was dying fast. These hoplites almost gone already. But you need a quick strike, and I actually lost a hoplite unit here. His armored legionnaires punched through him. Like I said, I knew my infantry wasn't going to last long, and that's why this plan was critical. Knock out the skirmishers, elephants into the rear. And again, pointless cav engagement out here for my opponent. You can see that my Campanian cav kept all these guys busy, where they couldn't stop the inevitable doom of his infantry, which was his main advantage. So he wasn't able to properly use his infantry against me. And again, my Libyans over here, they could have been the decisive factor in this battle had my elephants gotten held up. The reason I brought a substantial flanking threat on both flanks was to try and get my opponent to have to focus on one or the other and leave a weakness in one. And for me, he ended up leaving his weakness on the flank with my elephants. And I actually do start losing some elephants here. But they did a great job. I mean, my elephants racked up, looks like it's headed straight towards 250 kills. And against armored legionnaires, that definitely is worthwhile. So it goes to show you that the best way to counter Roman infantry is with elephants or quick, decisive rear charges. So again, right here, I used cheaper infantry to get the Romans fixed from one direction, which allowed me to get the rear charges. And on this flank, I was pretty happy with the way I did the screening maneuver. Again, you can see the fight that took place here. I just used one of my cav, and then I was able to swing around the Roman flank quickly, destroying all their skirmishers. So my opponent had a skirmish advantage, my opponent had an infantry advantage. When I say skirmish advantage, I had pretty powerful skirmishers with the Libyan Peltas, but to be honest, my opponent had better skirmishers. They cost more too, and his infantry was better, and it cost more as well. I guess so. I had more than he did, but you know what I mean. So I took away both of those advantages with a few simple moves. So I think that that's the kind of mindset you have to try and put yourself in when you're playing against a certain faction. So in this case, I knew it was going to be key for me to get around the Roman line, whether it was to rear charge infantry or whether it was to get rid of skirmishers. So I knew that I had to get around the Roman line, so I had a plan from the beginning to look like I was going to go for an all-out engagement on his flank, but make sure that I keep one unit free. So you can almost like feint an attack. Again, sacrifice one of your cav units to just force the engagement and then get the other one behind the line. Or the other thing you could do is bring a cheap light cav again, just to hold momentarily while you take a better cav to rear charge, or you could take the light cav into the rear to get rid of skirmishers. Like an Iberian cav is an excellent skirmisher hunter. It's cheap and it's fast, and they have a high attack and great weapon damage. They're not all that good against heavy infantry, but they can deliver rear charges, and you darn well better believe they can mop up infantry. Their only drawback is that if enemy skirmishers get many shots at them, they're going to die quick because they're very lightly armored. But again, a decent cav for that. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. This was an interesting battle for me, and it kind of shows that, don't get me wrong, like, Roman infantry is very strong, but I think that whenever you want to beat the Roman infantry, and I don't know if this is the right term for it, but in my mind you have to use what I'm going to call asymmetric warfare, if that's not what the official definition is, because I've heard it before when describing, like, land armies facing off against terrorists and ununiformed enemies. But I'm going to call this asymmetric warfare in the sense that my opponent, I knew he was going to have strong infantry, so I didn't necessarily bring strong infantry. I brought an elephant to counter his strong infantry because elephants are excellent against heavy sword infantry. So again, it's asymmetric. I'm going to focus on his strength with my own strength. Not every faction can do this, so if you're going to pick a faction, sometimes, I mean, if you're going to counter pick someone with a faction, that's how you'd want to make your decision. You know, okay, what is their faction good at? What might they bring? And then what faction could I pick that would be good at countering that? You're not always going to get to counter pick people, but even once someone's picked an army, that's kind of, I think, the thought process you should take is try and create some type of asymmetry that you can capitalize on in that fight. And in this case, it worked for me. It doesn't work every time. I've made all kinds of follies before when trying to get behind people's line that just backfire and I get destroyed. But it's definitely, I think, a more interesting way to make a battle happen. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this one. Heir of Carthage, signing off for now.